Hi everyone, my name is Esther Ruth Kentish, and this is going to be my first YouTube video. So today I decided that I'm going to share my experience with being obedient to God and everything that He brought into fruition for me. So in 2016, there was a prophecy laid out for my life. God spoke to me clearly and He said, "You are going to write 4 books." So I instantly thought, okay, wow, cool, God. I've always wanted to be an author. I've always wanted to explore my writing abilities and, not only explore, but be a publisher one day. So I looked at this as an opportunity to take advantage of this word that God had spoken to me, and I wanted to make sure I was able to execute it, in obedience. So the very first book that I was going to write, and I was actually writing, was my first book called The Emotional Healing Behind Words. The Emotional Healing Behind Words was a critical metadata analysis of 49 poems written from 2009 to 2016. And in this book is full of poems, and it breaks down the emotional, the psychological, and the spiritual healing that I faced over time. This book is a neuropsychological book, and it examines the human mind from a science perspective, by way of humanity. So, when writing this book, I loved it because it's a book full of poetry. It's raw, it's honest, and it's fresh. And in this process, it wasn't easy. It wasn't like, oh, okay, Esther, you're going to write a book, everything's going to be perfect, and then you're going to be published. No. When writing this book there was obedience that had to follow. So, God told me to quit my job. And when I tell you He told me to quit my job, I worked at the English Writing Center at my college. And so, as a university writing center tutor, I worked with graduate students, I worked with international students, and I was one of the top executive writing tutors on that campus. And I was known for writing. So that was my way of income. And when God told me, okay, Esther, I need you to quit your job and write the book now, I instantly took a step back because I wanted to make sure that, not only that this was God, but I wanted to make sure, God, how am I going to have some money to take care of myself? So I was obedient and I decided to tell my boss, hey, I'm going to go ahead and leave my job now. And I had been working there for a year. So working there for a year, I was like really elevated, really doing well. And I sounded probably crazy to my boss telling her, okay, hi, I'm gonna resign from, my position. So that took a lot of faith for me to do, and it took a lot of spiritual understanding. And so many people thought I was crazy because spiritual things are foolishness to those who don't, to those who don't understand spirituality at the time. So it sounded like it was complete foolishness. But it wasn't, because when you do something for God and He gives you a word, it's always going to be confirmed with His word, and His word is never going to come back void. You're always going to produce some type of fruit, or something is going to come into fruition from your deliberate obedience. And so I was very intentional with God and listening to the voice of God and seeking Him out. And I wanted to be sure that I wasn't missing God because of the Peters around me. I didn't want to be missing Christ because someone was afraid of how I would take care of myself, what I would be doing with my life, what my life plans were. So I wanted to be obedient above all else. And I decided to leave my job. So guys, when I left my job on November 15th, 2016, that is when my first book, The Emotional Healing Behind Words, was formally introduced to the world. Now, let me tell you guys the fruition that came out of this book from my obedience. So when I left my job and produced this book, my book went into Barnes and Noble. If you go to barnesandnoble.com, you and type in Esther Ruth Kentish, you will see the emotional healing behind words. My book began selling in Australia. My book, I got invited to like do workshops over, you know, this topic that no one had discussed before, because it's neuropsychology and poetry, and I was trying to study the connections between those things. So no one understood that this study had never been done before. It was something that doctors hadn't even examined. It's in our alternative way of medicine. So I was the first person in the entire world to create this establishment, and I believe that God will do things for you that no eye has saw, no ear has heard, or no heart has imagined. So I was